Welcome to another week, another show of Hawkeyed with me, Dave O'Hara. Most importantly, with her, head coach Lisa Bluder. Lisa, thanks for joining us. Great to see you.
My pleasure, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Truly my pleasure. You're welcome. So, folks, as we've been teasing for the last couple of weeks, depending on the order we air these over the holiday season, Coach Bluder going to join us for this show, then Caitlin Clark, you may have heard of her, and also Monika Czinano. All three separate shows, Monika Czinano, Caitlin Clark, and Coach Lisa Bluder. So, right here at Carver Hawkeye Arena. So how cool is this? So thanks again, Coach. And let's get right to it. I got so much I'd love to talk with you about. And you and I have talked in the past on my past radio shows. You've been kind enough with your time. I got to bring you back. The first time, folks, that I talked to Coach Bluder was the late 90s. And you were part of the under 40 in Des Moines. You were head coach at Drake after your 6 years at St. Ambrose. So if you would, take us back to that time at Drake. You had Jan Jensen there, and now it's well documented. Jan's been with you the whole time, and Post Player Central here at Iowa. Long build up here for you, because I want you to take some time and kind of stretch that out for us, please.
After St. Ambrose, I was really fortunate to get the job at Drake. I interviewed at both Marquette and Drake, but I'm an Iowa girl. So for me, Drake was the right choice, and I knew how good Drake had been when Carol Baumgarten was there in the 80s. And so definitely excited about that. And then I walk in and I get to coach one of the best players in America in Jan Jensen, who led the United States in scoring her senior year at 29.7 points per game.
And a Southwest Iowa girl.
Absolutely, and was a Rhodes Scholar candidate, just an unbelievable student as well as player. So I really was able to walk into a very good situation at Drake. And then obviously 2 years later we built the Knapp Center, and that really helped because the field house was pretty old to play in. Yeah. It was hard to recruit to, and then we started getting some of the best players in the state to come join us, and pretty soon we built a pretty good thing at Drake, and we ended up being the state champs there, sweeping Iowa State, Iowa, UNI, and ending up, I think our last year ranked 23rd best in the polls in our last year before coming over here to Iowa.
And I got to take you back then before Drake and before St. Ambrose. And folks, Coach told me in a previous interview, you had to adjust more from playing with your brothers in the mean streets of Marion, Iowa, and playing 5-on-5 with them, and then adjusting to 6-on-6 Iowa high school girls basketball then, and you were Miss Iowa basketball, and then you go to UNI and play 5-on-5, and you said, Dave, it was easier for me to adjust from 6-on-6 to go to 5-on-5 in college. Talk about that and now how the game has morphed over all those years ago. And hey, I grew up in that era and I loved 6-on-6. I loved watching it. Yeah. And Oklahoma and Iowa were the last two mainstays in that. But talk about the maturation and how this game has changed so much, especially in women's basketball.
It has changed so much, and I've been just very fortunate to have a front row seat to all the changes that have happened in women's basketball. But going back from when I played 6-on-6, and everybody loved that game. It was sold out. It was nationally televised. Yeah. It was featured in Sports Illustrated. Wayne Cooley did an unbelievable job making this really, something that the state of Iowa was really proud of was its girls basketball programs. And so I never made it to state, and that to this day, Dave, it still bothers me. It still bothers me that I never made it to state. I did play 6-on-6 all the way through. They would do polls when I was in high school. Who wants to play 5-on-5? Who wants to play 6-on-6? I was the only one on my high school team that wanted to play 5-on-5 because I really wanted to go on and play in college. And I knew I was going to be at a disadvantage, never playing defense in my life, only dribbling twice in my life. But it really was easier because I did have, people that I played with as I was younger, my brothers and different things, that I was playing the 5-on-5 game. In fact, the first time I played 6-on-6, I dribbled 3 times and traveling, and I was like, what are you talking about? I didn't know what I was doing wrong. But then I went on to UNI, and I played there, and it took about a year for me to really catch on to the 5-on-5 game. Just the transition part of it was so different. But I'm really glad that I was able to play in college in the 70s. Which is, pretty unusual because it was just the beginning of Title IX. Even though Title IX was passed in 72, I just received a partial scholarship in 79.
Wow. So, see, that's changed. Yeah. And, you talk about marketing, and it was appointment television when we were kids. The Iowa High School tournament, remember, was on public television.
Yes.
And even boys and girls basketball, and those folks were celebrities when we were kids. That was like you mentioned. They did a great job of marketing it, and I love you're ever the competitor. It still bothers you that you didn't go to state. I mean, how cool is that?
It does.
All the success you've had, it still gets to you. And, folks, just so you know, any place she's been that has a Hall of Fame, her name is in there. So from St. Ambrose to Linn-Mar to UNI, and at Iowa, you're into year 23 now, right?
Yeah.
as you think. And I was joking with you off the air, and before we run to this break, I do want to mention your daughter, Hannah, is your director of operations here for the University of Iowa Women's Basketball. And I was trying to decide when you did your press conference that took the job, I was trying to understand, and I asked you which child were you pregnant with.
Yes.
Because you were pregnant when you did your presser and got the gig, and it was your daughter, Emma.
That's correct.
And now David is at Grinnell playing basketball his sophomore year, Grinnell College, and Emma's here at Iowa as a student, and then Hannah here. So, yeah, we were trying to figure out, our buddy Bailey Turney, your SID here for women's basketball, who you were pregnant with. So that's the answer, Emma.
It was Emma, and it was right in this very room, actually, that we held that press conference. I'll never forget it. Hannah was 3 years old, and she was sitting on David's lap, and Emma,
your husband, David.
My husband, David, yes. And I was pregnant with Emma, and I figured, well, I was about 8.5 months pregnant. I thought, well, I can go right over to the hospital if I need to, so it's okay. But Emma is now a senior here at Iowa, so talk about coming full circle. She is a senior in the education department, will be a future teacher for us, and is going to be great. And Hannah working for me as my director of operations. Who would have ever thought that? When we were in this room 22, 23 years ago. Really proud of her. She has one class left, and then she'll have her master's in sports administration from Northwestern, and who knows what will happen after that.
So Dr. Grant, yes, please, let's talk about that.
Yeah. Dr. Grant hired me. Bob Bowlesby was here, but Dr. Grant hired me, and after about 4 or 5, 6 months, she was retiring, and I was just so sad because here I had this opportunity to work for one of the best women in the whole United States that had done the most for gender equity, Title IX, and I just wanted to be a part of her life. I wanted to learn from her. But luckily, I was able to because she stayed here in this community, and so she went from being my boss to really being my mentor. And I was able to pick her ear, go to her house, take her for lunch, do so many things with Dr. Grant that I was still able to really embrace all the lessons that she was able to teach me over the years. So I'm very, very glad that I got to know Dr. Grant, and she's passed away about a year ago from right now. I saw her a week before she passed away, but she taught me a lot of valuable lessons. And I know that I would not be the coach or the mom or the woman that I am today without the lessons that I learned from Dr. Grant.
Well, and our friends at the Cedar Rapids Gazette did that wonderful piece last year, the 50 women in sports, and Dr. Grant was all over that. And it was just nice to hear you talk about her a little bit because I know she was important in your life. She was.
Again, anytime I had a situation that I didn't know how to handle, she was there to help me. And one of the things that I really am proud about is that we were able to get the new North Liberty School named after her.
Awesome.
So it's the Dr. Christine Grant School, and that all was just, I think she said, and she had so many accomplishments. I mean, she was named the Joro Ford Leader of the Year. I mean, so many different things. She has an NCAA ballroom named after her, but for her, having that elementary school named after her was her highlight.
That's awesome. And folks, we've got so much more to get to with Coach Lisa Bluder. We haven't even talked about this year's team, and you were talking about how great things are going in year 23 now at University of Iowa for you. But let's take a quick break, and we'll be back with more Hawkeyed with me, Dave O'Hara, and head coach Lisa Bluder for the Iowa women's basketball team. We'll be back with more in just a few moments.
To have a strong finish, you need an excellent start. It's true on the track and also in the field. That's why Merschman Seeds works tirelessly to deliver cutting-edge technology year after year. Introducing Starting Line, Merschman Seeds' latest advancement in seed treatment, now providing added protection from white mold and sudden death syndrome all season. Ask for Starting Line seed treatment from Merschman Seeds, your friend in the field.
Hi, I'm Joel from Tice Chevrolet. We've lived through some very interesting times the last few months. Ensuring everyone's safety is more important than ever. That is why we are participating in the Chevy Clean program. At your request, we will pick up your vehicle, service it, and return it after we've cleaned it using the current CDC guidelines. This is just another way to work towards exceeding your expectations. So give us a call and let us show you what it means to be part of the Tice Automotive family.
Welcome back to Hawkeyed with me, Dave O'Hara. There she is, head coach Lisa Bluder of the Iowa women's basketball team going into year 23. So, Coach, another name that's big in your life and you know that you followed, one between you, but C. Vivian Stringer, the legend here at Iowa, and an Angie Lee between you and Coach for about 5 years. But you know that name still was here when you got here. So let's talk about her and her life and career and what you walked into here then after Angie Lee And then that name comes up again, Jan Jensen. So I'm going to get out of the way and let you lay it out for us.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, even though there was a 5-year difference between when Coach Stringer left here and I came, her legacy lived on. I mean,
still does.
You know, Hall of Fame basketball coach, the only person to take 3 different programs to a Final Four. Just an amazing career. So I'm really, I was the kid though over at St. Ambrose. I was the coach over at St. Ambrose that would sneak over here to Carver Hawkeye Arena and watch her practices and try to get as much information out of her. I worked her basketball camps back then. So we did have a relationship. And then when I was at Drake, we played Iowa. Yeah. And so, you know, had the opportunity to compete against her. And then of course, when Rutgers joined the Big Ten, we really competed against each other. But Coach Stringer's always been somebody that I've admired very much. When my husband was in a bad traffic accident in like 97 in Des Moines, and Coach Stringer was the first person that reached out to me because of what had happened to her husband, Bill. And so, you know, that's something we always kind of care. And then Dr. Grant hired both of us. We had that connection. We both knew what it was like to sit in the chair at Iowa. So we had a lot of connections, and I do consider her a mentor and one of the first female women's basketball coaches that I really got to know. You know, I always respected Pat Summitt, but really got to know Vivian. And, you know, so this record that recently has been broken with most Big Ten wins, I took that over from Vivian. And I almost felt a little tarnished about that whole situation because I just think so much about Coach Stringer.
I think that's wonderful. And just think of all the wonderful people, as you just mentioned, that were a part of your life and career, and no one gets there by themselves. But a name I got to mention, and I'm going to start leaving names off, and I don't like this when I do this, but we'll say Doyle, and you'll go Gustafson, and we'll talk Disterhoff, and we'll say Printty, and you know, now we've got Czinano and Clark, and I apologize to all the other names I'm leaving off. But that gives you a template, folks, of what this woman has built. But without you and Jan Jensen, man, Post City Central here in Iowa. And boy, I'll tell you, watching the work that you two have done with your post players, but I just got to ask you, what next rabbit is coming out of the hat from Megan to them? And you got Caitlin Clark and Monika, and you've got other big recruits. We won't get anybody in trouble and mention names. But you got great recruiting classes coming in. But talk about that association with you and Coach Jan Jensen. I just think that's wonderful.
You know, I coached Jan for a year, so we had a different relationship starting out than working together. I mean, I coached her. Then she went over and played professionally in Germany, won the Euro Cup. And then came back and was starting her master's degree at Drake, and I hired her as an entry-level position, and she worked her way up the ladder very quickly. And now we've worked together for 31 years. And also Jenny Fitzgerald came at the same time. So the three of us have worked together for 31 years, and I'm so blessed just to have their organization, their commitment, their, you know, just, I mean, it's unheard of, really, for 3 people to stay together that long in this kind of a business. So I'm very thankful for that. But Jan does work with our posts, and she does such a great job, as you know, all the great posts that have went through this program. And you named a couple of them. You know, we have Monika Czinano now, who has led the country in field goal percentage the last 2 years. Megan Gustafson was the National Player of the Year, won the Lisa Leslie as the Best Post Player of the Year. But before that, we had some really good post players too. Bethany Doolittle, Jamie Cavey, Morgan Johnson. And so we had some great post players. But certainly, you know, Megan took us to a whole nother level.
Yes, and thanks for confirming. I knew I'd leave names off, so there we go. And apologies to Coach Fitzgerald. I left her name off. That's right. And that's what I want to hone in on. And again, folks, you know the accolades here, and I don't mean to short sheet any of those, but Coaches of the Year honors, you know, Elite Eight, as she mentioned, with Megan Gustafson, and all these other wonderful coaching accolades you've won. But that's what I wanted to hone in on. Family here. That's all I see and hear. You hear Caitlin and Monika talk about it now, and you talk about it. But that is no garbage. I mean, you can see clearly when you go to a game at Carver Hawkeye or see you folks on TV, you really are a family unit.
Yeah, and it's probably least displayed then because, you know, there I'm doing my job, you know, it's business and we're intense and everything like that. But man, this is a family, and I know a lot of people say that and brag about that, but it is different here. And one of our values is everyone matters. And I don't care how many minutes you play on our basketball program. You know, if you're the leading scorer, if you hardly get off the bench, you're just as important as everybody else because you're getting us ready for those games. You're a part of our circle. You're a part of our culture and our recruiting. And so it's just, it is an important thing. And I really, to me, the joy I get is not really from winning another game. It's more for what the impact I can have on these young ladies' lives. And that's what inspires me. And in fact, my mission statement is to use the sport of basketball to influence the next generation of female leaders. And that's what it's all about to me is, watching them go on and be successful in their careers, or watching them go on and have families and being a part of that for the rest of their lives.
I said to you when you came in here today, and before we even started rolling the camera here, I find it fascinating when you see Carver Hawkeye packed for women's basketball, and you see what Caitlin does with the, comes in and high fives all the little girls, and they're holding the posters. Not just Caitlin, but Monika, every one of your teams, players, high five, you coaches. To see the impact, not just on, and this is what my production partner Michael and I were talking about before the show, it's not just young girls or girls. It's, when Michael says Caitlin Clark's the best basketball player, he calls games for Big Ten Network Plus and says Caitlin Clark's the best basketball player, male or female, in the country. Now, some people want to equivocate that. That's fine. We can discuss that.
Yeah.
But I think what you just brought up right there, and I would, not to correct you, but to add upon that, it's not the impact you're making just with young girls or little girls. Boys, everybody's enamored with this team of yours and what you've built here. I just think your community outreach is fantastic.
Well, I mean, the women that come here understand they're more than just basketball players. They're going to be great students, and they're going to be great ambassadors in our community. So they know that right up front. And we always talk about when you're an Iowa women's basketball player, people are going to recognize you, and that can be a little bit of a burden at times. But, I mean, it's a welcome burden for these women that want to be role models. And we get out into the schools, we talk to the kids in the schools. But, yeah, to see those kids, even away games, that's what always amazes me. Away games. We were at Nebraska last year, and a little girl had a sign that said, "Caitlin Clark, can I have your shoelaces?" And after the game, Caitlin walked over to her and took off her shoes and gave her her shoes.
Wow.
I mean, that's the type of impact and the type of young women that we have on this team.
That's got to make you, like you said, that's what it's all about, truly.
It is.
Coach, we got to get to this year's team, and most recently, but I just get lost in great stories with you, so thank you for taking the time. I'm getting greedy with your time, but we're going to come back with one more segment. Head coach Lisa Bluder here at Iowa Women's Basketball. I'm Dave O'Hara with Hawkeyed, back with more in just a few moments.
Hi, I'm Joel from Tice Automotive Family. Our commercial truck departments are growing. With the availability of the Ram 45 5500 or the Chevy 45 to 6500, we can build the right truck for your needs. From dry freight boxes to custom Rancher goosenecks, your options are unlimited. So stop in and let us show you what it means to be part of the larger Tice Automotive family.
Who do you trust to produce the best yield? A seat company that's chasing technology, or a seat company that's writing a book on it? Merschman Seeds is a leader in technology. We're independent and family owned. Our sister company, MS Technologies, provides access to world-class traits and genetics. And our starting line seed treatment is second to none. Who can you trust with your yields? Merschman Seeds, your friend in the field.
Welcome back to Hawkeyed with me, Dave O'Hara. There she is, head coach at Iowa Women's Basketball, head coach Lisa Bluder. Coach, we've spent the last two segments. It's been great reminiscing, going down memory lane and building up to where we are today, and we talked about some of the great players. You've got two great players right now, and I'm going to have them on in subsequent shows after you. Monika Czinano, Caitlin Clark. Both players, how appropriate is it? Yeah, they're 2 years apart, but they're both approaching, by the time this show airs, tomorrow's Dartmouth game, looks like Caitlin will be at 2,000 points career.
Yep.
And Monika is only 31 away, and so she's going to get there either in the Dartmouth game or the Purdue game, unless something crazy happens, unless it won't. That's incredible. On the same team, same time, and they both seem like they're more than happy to give it up to each other.
You wouldn't think there's that many points out there, right? I mean, we score a lot of points, and that helps. And that helps. But as I understand it, that Caitlin will be the fastest person, NCAA, male or female basketball player, to get to 2,000 points, which is amazing.
Yeah, it really is.
I mean, that's an incredible accomplishment. Obviously, Caitlin can score the ball. And she can score it from anywhere, and she's amazing. But I always like to remind people, not only did she lead the country in scoring the last 2 years, she's led it in assists as well. And so she's not like just looking for her points. She's looking for those assists and sharing the ball, and her biggest target is Monika Czinano.
Why not?
And, when you shoot the ball at such a high rate, Caitlin's smart. She knows that's a walking assist for her. But also, Monika wouldn't be nearing this number had it not been for her shooting such a high percentage. 68% from the field is unbelievable.
You made a comment the other day, and I've got to bring this up. You said both players are happy to be here, but they're happy they're here at the same time as each other. I thought that was well worded. And that's you don't think about that until you just said that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like it's perfect that they're here together because they play off of each other so well. You know, every great center needs a great point guard. Every great point guard needs a great center.
Sure.
And so it's just perfect that those two are here together.
Okay, I have to ask you, I'm going to tease you a little bit, but be honest, not that you haven't been the whole show. Have you ever said with Caitlin, the logo threes, the 35, 40-footers, have you ever said the old coaching phrase, no, okay, good shot, get back? Have you ever said that?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you for being honest.
I mean,
how could you not?
You know, you're, no, oh my gosh.
Great
it's
shot.
almost more astonishment than great shot. It's
I had
like,
to ask.
You know, that really went in. And, you know, the thing is some of those shots are really crazy, but once she's made one, I want her to go for that second one because she's kind of in that rhythm. She's in that zone. But what I don't want is them to do them early because I think early she needs to get her teammates involved. But at the end of the quarter, the end of the game, when we need something to spark the audience, I know where I'm going to get it from.
Yeah, and boy, I'll tell you, when she hits something like that and you see her going back on D doing this number here.
The place goes crazy.
Off the rafters,
you know?
yeah.
And our attendance in Carver Hawkeye Arena this year has been just fabulous. I mean, last year we were the third best attended team in the United States, but we were the only team that had 3 straight sellouts to end the year last year. 3 sellouts in Carver, 15,400 people. This year we've had such great attendance already. It's just, you know, this is a team that's fun to watch.
Yeah.
And I think people see the joy that they have playing the game.
I knew I'd get lost with you, so I got to stay focused here for just a second. Okay, last year, Big Ten regular season champs, Big Ten tournament champs, a bump on the road, kind of like the men last year in a tourney. This year, you're state champions. You know, you talked about never going to state. Actually, you did. So, but, you know, you talked about winning the state title, beating Drake, although it was on overtime. That had to be tough to go back to the place you kind of built, the Knapp Center. You win by 8 in overtime, but then Iowa State, you handle them pretty well. That's a 13-point victory against the team. You're ranked 13th now as we talk in the AP, but at the time they were ranked a little bit ahead of you. You beat Iowa State and Ashley Jones, and then you beat UNI this past Sunday. And you know, a gal you know well, you know, Coach Warren at UNI. But I love Caitlin when she did the national interview on you know, the national report anchors and the play-by-play folks. The ladies were interviewing her, and I'm gonna joke with her here in a little bit. Is she Dick Vitale now, the broadcaster? She dropped 2 babies in the interview in the post game. I was the state for women's basketball, baby. And so she was definitely taken by the moment. And that is, you mentioned about being fun to watch. It's fun to see players have fun, too.
Well, and Caitlin loves to compete. That's what makes her so special is, you know, everybody likes to win, but do they like to compete? Are you really going to go out there and put everything on the line, win or lose? I mean, just compete your heart out. And that's, you know, how Caitlin plays. And I think that's what people are so attracted to her because it's hard to find that sometimes. There's somebody just wears their heart on their sleeves, their emotions on their sleeve. They show their passion. She does that. So it's pretty fun. But, yeah, you know, being state champions this year is always a good accomplishment. Last year we won the Big Ten, like you said. Doing that was the first time ever in Iowa women's basketball history that we'd won both of them in the same year. So it was a historic year for us. You know, we did have a bump in the second round, losing to Creighton in a close game, a 2-point game. But Creighton's a good basketball team. And, you know, that's just, it's such a good reminder that every play is important and never take that game, any game, for granted.
So let's go one step farther. We're about, well, let's say halfway, because you're at the, you know, semester break and you got Dartmouth before you get into the heart of the Big Ten season against Purdue after that little break. So how's this team looking as you're rolling? I know it's too early to tell. You're not postseason yet, a couple months away, but get us into the mindset of this team and to you.
Yeah, you know, we're not happy with where we are right now. I mean, we are happy with, you know, some of the wins that we've had. We feel like we're going to do very well in this season, but we also know that we're not there yet and that we can improve, our offense, even though, like, I was complaining about scoring 88 points the other night against UNI, but it wasn't as beautiful of offense as I really want to see and as flowing as I would like to see.
Style points now, Coach?
Yeah, you know, kind of. I'm being picky about our wins now. But that's okay because, again, we don't want to have something like last year that happened, and it could, but, you know, you can't be fearful, right? But right now we just are trying to make our team look as unified and as pretty of basketball as we can play. And I think we can still get there. I think we have room to grow.
Well, Coach, you've only made me work hard today for only one reason, to try to land this plane within the confines of a segmented show. We could go on, and I greatly appreciate your time. I don't want to be abusive. All this tells me is we got to do it again soon, okay?
All right, my pleasure.
Great. Head Coach Lisa Bluder.
My pleasure, Dave. Good to see you.
You're good to see you. Thank you so much. Head coach of the women's basketball team, Lisa Bluder, Iowan through and through, most importantly. So, hey, folks, again, thanks for tuning in. We'll be back with subsequent shows with Caitlin Clark and Monika Czinano. So for my buddy Michael Merrick, and also for Bailey Turner for arranging all this SID for the Iowa women's basketball team. I'm Dave O'Hara with Hawkeyed. That's all from me. Thanks to all of you. And as always, thanks for staying tuned at the end of the program for these rolling credits to give our advertisers and sponsors the attention and credit they so richly deserve. And as always, to our aforementioned guests and to you, the viewers. That's all from us at Hawkeyed. Thanks to all of you.